of the Dean Obeidallah Show on SiriusXM's Progress.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Thursday, January 25th. Continuing our conversation right now, our friend Jen Taub was here, law professor at Western New England University School of Law, author of the book Big Dirty Money. She has her Substack newsletter, Booked Up with Jen Taub, and a lot to cover, my friend. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you, Dean?
Pretty good. Hanging in there. Although Donald Trump seems to be calling, sort of mobilizing the Confederate Army. He put a post, I don't know, you saw it a short time ago, calling on red state National Guards to send their National Guards down to Texas to patrol the border, which would be, it's not that that's illegal for the National Guards to do that. They did it during Trump, but the idea of Trump calling to mobilize National Guards is a little unnerving considering we've gone through January 6th and he's a desperate, dangerous man. So, but let's talk about something else with Trump, because you are friendly with Eugene Carroll and the testimony. Donald Trump testified today. Tomorrow there'll be closing arguments. It's the second defamation case. Could you remind people in the first case what the verdict was and what this case is about?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you, recall the one that's happening now, Carroll 1, and the one that already happened, Carroll 2, related to when the defamation happened. So the case that is happening today relates to the comments he made about Eugene Carroll while he was president in 2019. The case she already won, which was from him defaming her as well as sexually assaulting her. The defamation is about denying the sexual assault. That case related to the assault that happened in the early 90s, but the defamation that happened when he was no longer in office in the fall of 2022.
Okay, so in that first case, she won a total of $5 million. Then
That's right.
Second one, so what is the measure of damage? Because there's liability has been determined. There's no question of liability here. It's been adjudicated in the first case. What is the measure of damage she's seeking in the second case?
Okay, so in the first case, even though the jury came up with that total figure of $5 million, that included for the sexual assault and for the defamation that happened in 2024, as well as their punitive damages. And right now, when they're asking for $10 million for that original defamation, which is the one that damaged her career the most, that's when she lost her job at Elle magazine and so on. They're asking for that, but they're also asking for the fact that he also, even after he lost that case, defamed her again. So they're asking for $10 million, but the jury can also add on top of that punitive damages. Eugene Carroll had an expert witness testify, the same one that testified before, and the same one who was involved in expert testimony with Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. You might remember them, who were defamed by Rudy Giuliani. And she's an expert in kind of looking at, okay, if Donald Trump had this many followers on Twitter or this many people listening to him, how many people heard the message and what the impact that would that be? And what she's calculating is essentially what would it cost to buy back your reputation, to place ads, to do all this kind of stuff to rebuild your reputation, to counterbalance that defamation. But what they're also asking for is to come up with a figure, and this would be the punitive thing on top of the compensatory, asking them to come up with a number that would stop him from continuing to do this. And because he's doing it deliberately, because he already lost the case and so on. So that's kind of the difference here, is probably going to be more money and hopefully a dollar amount that will shut him up. I don't think there is actually a number that would ever shut up Donald Trump, because he always believes he can raise more money.
So he testified today, and he was not supposed to talk about the actual question of if he defamed her or not, because that's been adjudicated. He tried to slip it in there and the judge cut him off. But he was asked by his lawyer about Eugene Carroll, did you want to hurt her? And he said, no, I just wanted to defend myself, my family, and frankly, my presidency. And what is the benefit of him testifying right now? Because it's about her damages. The liability has been determined. So what's the benefit?
Well, yeah. I mean, so you say, yes, in the previous case, there's this issue that the statement he made in 2023, which was almost identical to what he said before, since that was already considered to be defamatory, and he had the opportunity to adjudicate that before and he lost, they can't relitigate that issue. But remember, juries can kind of do whatever they want. They can go rogue, right? And the jury could ignore that and just decide they don't want to listen to that if they feel that he didn't mean it. But also the stuff we were just talking about in terms of punitive damages to punish bad behavior. If they think, well, if I were in his shoes, I might have said the same thing to protect myself, not to hurt her. That's his argument. It doesn't really fly when you see that he's been 20, 30, 40, 50, continually attacking her now. Seems like it's trying to hurt her. It doesn't seem like it's just trying to protect himself, right? It's a difference between growling, your dog growling at you when it doesn't want to do something and then leaping up and, biting you in the neck. That's the difference.
Yeah, and literally today, Donald Trump spent the morning on social media posting 37 posts about E. Jean Carroll in just 20 minutes. And he keeps doing this over and over. And some of them might not be defamatory, but he's just vile and despicable. So look, tomorrow's closing argument, it was a short trial. We could get a verdict tomorrow afternoon. Juries, they're not, if they can give a verdict on Friday afternoon, a lot of times they will. We'll see. It might come back on Monday. And I thought it was interesting. Why he even testified, I think, was just to get pressed so he can say, I said something and blah, blah, blah. But we're going to see how this works out. Look, Dean, I've been to that courthouse. It's a nice cafeteria, but it's not that nice. They bring them food from it. I can tell you, they don't want to have another meal there. They want to get this done. They're going to do the numbers. That's all they need to do. I would be shocked if they don't wrap this up and go home. And by the way, Kaplan doesn't usually work on Fridays. I don't want to say, let me say differently. He doesn't usually have trials on Friday. I think he does motion practice and other court business. But that he's doing it today. And my guess is because they already missed they didn't have the trial Tuesday. They didn't have it Wednesday. I think he doesn't want to drag this out for this jury, that he become resentful. Anything could happen. I think it's going to be done and done before sundown tomorrow. Yeah, I guess it depends how long the closing arguments are. It wasn't a long trial. I mean, I'm hoping tomorrow there's two things. One is a really good verdict here that furthers justice. And second, the U.S. Court of Appeals in the January 6th case denies Trump's appeal for immunity. And all of us are waiting. It's been over 2.5 weeks now. And look, they're not on our timetable, but they did expedite the process for briefing. They made them brief stuff over the holidays. And I frankly thought it wouldn't be almost 3 weeks later. I mean, I'm an impatient person. I know that.
Look, you're a lawyer. You're a lawyer, and even if the judges decide, even if two of the judges have a theory and they might want to get a unanimous decision, you need them to think about it. You need the clerks to do the research. Even if they're using the memos and the parties, you need to draft it. It would take at least 7 to 10 days to do that, and then you need to circulate it. You need to edit it. And then you need to proofread it. This thing has to be perfect. This is a really important case. And I don't know where they are in the process. Are they still arguing over this?
I hope not.
And if I were them, I would also be thinking about what's going to pass muster if there's an on-bank review. What is going to work with the rest of the panel? So there's a lot they have going on. I would be surprised. I don't know when they're going to do it, but you would think they would get to it a little faster. But yeah.
So, do you think there's any chance if the opinion is so well written that the Supreme Court doesn't even take the case, assuming it's a ruling that we like and it's 3-0, that Trump has no immunity? Look, I think
he's not going to go right to the court, right? He's going to ask for a full panel, the full panel. Will they deny it?
Delays things.
I hope they deny it. I hope they deny it. That would be great.
And then the Supreme Court's up to them. I think there'll be nuance in that this is a question of first impression about a president's liability for crimes, official act versus unofficial act. Where do you draw the line? And that it's not really been litigated like this before on the actual president who's been indicted, a former president who's been indicted for actions while they took in the White House. So there's going to be, I think there'll be some nuance in it. It could go to the Supreme Court. Maybe it should go to the Supreme Court. We're going to see, but there's no way there'll be blanket immunity. What do you think they come down? Do you think they give some idea of immunity if a president does an official act, but they look at based on the pleadings, the allegations are that his actions were for his personal benefit, similar to what the U.S. Court of Appeals did in the civil liability case against him in D.C., where they go, when you're running for office, that's personal. That's not presidential. And I know he's trying to bootstrap everything in. But what do you think?
So this is a little bit above my pay grade. I'm not a constitutional law scholar. So just like you, I'm kind of trying to read the tea leaves. And I think this court, I mean, Roberts would want to try to avoid appearing to be making a political decision. And
Right.
I think that to the extent that I think if this court would want to, if the decision is somehow narrowly done in a way that leaves open the possibility for some level of immunity. I mean, you don't want to get rid of all immunity for acts, for official acts. I think to me, the real question is it a legal question or is it a factual question? Do you leave it to a jury to decide whether they were acting within the scope of, what is that line? What is the line and who draws it? And depending on the decision the DC Circuit makes there, the court may freak out if they make it, oh no, this is a factual matter and not a legal determination. And it totally depends. I think if the DC Circuit doesn't mess up the existing doctrine, then the Supreme Court might deny cert. But if they try to get fancy and creative and try to go straight color outside the lines at all, I think the court's going to have no choice but to hear the case because they don't want, I think, the DC Circuit making new law.
I'm chatting with law professor Jen Taub. So, Jen, on almost a lighter note, but I think there's some substance. Jon Stewart's coming back to the Daily Show. And when he left to remind people, he left in 2015, a short time after Trump announced. And many people, including myself, wrote articles about, we need you, Jon Stewart. And if John had only been there, Hillary Clinton would have won. Now he's going to host only one day a week on Mondays, but the rest of the week will be executive producing. Do you think he could have an impact on this race or narratives about the race and what the media covers a little bit?
Here's why. Two reasons. One, people like me, our serotonin levels will be just, much higher because we'll be laughing and happy to see him. But secondly, I think I was thinking about this, Dean, and this ties into what you're saying, and that, the president of the UAW yesterday announced that the union was endorsing Biden. And that's a bigger deal than you would think, because I remember in the summer of 2016, my friends who are close to the union movement said, there's trouble here. A lot of even if the union workers don't like Hillary, and I don't know why that was. Now, let me go back.
Right.
Okay. Jon Stewart is very popular with the firefighters union. Sure. He's a real champion for the working guy and veterans and working gal. And so I feel that is the Obama voters who turned into Trump voters on class issues. I wonder whether, and I should say, the white working class as opposed to the black working class or the Asian working class. There's this particular group that I think could reject Trump. And I see Jon Stewart as someone who those folks might relate to. So
I think you make an excellent point because Jon Stewart, after he left the Daily Show, made fighting for the first responders who had illnesses from 9/11 a big issue. And he was supported by people who were 9/11 first responders who were clearly Republicans. They're from New York here. And he went there and fought for them over and over and shamed Congress to their face, going, how can you not be here? And then he did a whole segment on his show on Apple TV and about veterans exposed to burn pits. It was very moving. I watched that. I thought it was great. It was like a year and a half ago. Yep. And then last year he went to Congress and shamed, and again, it was Republicans though, but he shamed them for not voting for aid to help our veterans in the PACT Act and passing that. And he played a role and they both passed. So you're right. I think his credibility might be broader support level than he had before. I had someone call in, I can't remember who, said a year ago, we need Jon Stewart to run for president. And I'm like, that would be interesting. If John is
it was like the Zelensky, right? The Zelensky candidate.
He would be the Zelensky. And also the other thing John has that's unique is he gets under Trump's skin. The same way Nikki Haley is now. Donald Trump called Jon Stewart all sorts of names. I just wrote about it for CNN in the past. And he called John names. He also, and John in retrospect said that he believed that Trump was being anti-Semitic. He was tweeting what his real name is, Leibowitz. And he goes, I think John said that he just believed that Trump wanted people to know he's Jewish at the time. And it was very interesting. He said that in retrospect, a few years after he had already left the Daily Show, because when he reflected back, he goes, why would you bring up my real name other than to tell people I'm Jewish? And so he thought it was like a sign of anti-Semitism. And that was years ago. It's not now in this world we live in. It's like, it's true.
Right.
So I think he's going to get under Trump's skin a lot. We're going to see. I hope he does. But what do you think about, last thing here before we run out of time, Nikki Haley is pissing off Trump a great deal. She's getting laughs at his expense about the January 6th thing. He keeps saying, I was in charge of security on January 6th, and everyone laughs. And he's afraid to debate me, and people are organically laughing in South Carolina last night and New Hampshire. How much do you think the fact that she's a woman, and a woman of color might be angering him even more?
You know, Donald Trump is angry when anyone else laughs at him. It's really at the core, you know, as my friend Mary Trump has written about in her book, Too Much and Never Enough. You know, when he was being a jerk to his little brother, his older brother took a big bowl of mashed potatoes and dumped it on his head, and everyone laughed at him. And it's something he still brings up, and he was humiliated. We also know, you know, that's like the rosebud, right? Injury.
Right.
And then there's, you know, the narcissistic injury. And then we know, you know, what he felt like at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when Barack Obama mocked him. He does not like to be mocked or ridiculed, right, by anybody. The only person, you know, he will shut up for and he'll let mock him is Vladimir Putin. And I guess we'll never really fully know why he's Vlad's dog, but maybe one day.
One day. Well, my friend Jen, I want to thank you for joining us. And Substack, Booked Up with Jen Taub is a Substack. Anything else you want to plug? Or we ran out of time?
Actually, the Substack is Money and Gossip, but that's all right.
Money and Gossip, that's right.
I also want to say,
Money and Gossip.
Can I just say this other thing, which is this is the year for Michigan, the state. You know, University of Michigan won the Rose Bowl and the national championship. That's why I'm wearing this fabulous official Rose Bowl shirt. And this Sunday, my team, which loses all the time and will disappoint us always, is running. Detroit Lions are playing against some team from San Francisco for the NFC Championship. And it's my goal in life to have this come down to the Lions versus Taylor Swift's team for this.
Oh my God, that would be all right. Well, Jen, I wish your team the best. Being a Giant fan, I have no skin in this at all. But thanks very much. Have a great night. Look forward to chatting with you in the future.
You too.